Moving on to our next example, we are going to make this one, which I have done a file save as, and I have named this Spongebob Buttons 2, because we don't want to write all of that code again, right? It's a very similar program, so we're going to build off this one. But as you can see, this is our original, but what we want to do is take it into this, so from this to this. There's a problem with that. That is that we are using a border pane, and a border pane has a top, left, center, right, and bottom. Well, you can see here we have 2 things on top and 3 things on bottom. How are we going to get that to work when we're using a border pane? Well, we can and we will, and it's not going to be as difficult as you think. If you remember back to the textbook examples, we spoke about H-boxes and V-boxes, and that's what we're going to do. So let me open up my Microsoft Paint right here, which I have detailed our program in. This is currently what we're looking at, obviously not to scale, but this is currently what we're working with, right? We have a top, center, top, left, center, right, and bottom. But what we want to do is we want to have 3 things on bottom, so something like this, and then 2 things on top. But we cannot do that with a border pane, because in a border pane you can only add 1 thing to each section. So you can only add 1 thing to the left, 1 thing to the center, 1 thing to the right, 1 thing to the bottom, and 1 thing to the top. Well, what we could do is we could add 1 thing to the bottom, but that 1 thing we add could be a H-box, a horizontal box, because by adding 1 horizontal box to the bottom of our border pane, we can then place things inside of our horizontal box. Meaning we stuck to the rules of a border pane, we only placed 1 thing at the bottom, but inside of that thing we placed many. We could do the same at the top. We could set a V-box, which had that title we saw, as well as the original image. Let me see if I can zoom out on this just a little bit and bring over to PowerPoint. So this is what we're looking at. The center is going to stay the same with the center, left, and right, because we can do that. But the bottom, if we want these 3 pictures here, we're going to have to put them in a horizontal box, 1, 2, 3, inside of 1 box. And on top, if we want to get that title along the picture, that's going to go in a V box or a vertical box. So let's start looking at adapting that into our code. So how are we going to start this? Well, the first thing I suggest we do is add a couple of objects for horizontal and vertical boxes. So we can create a H-box. Let's add a comment first. Add H-box and V-box. So H-box, HB equals new H-box. And V-box, VB equals new V-box. And just like that, we have made horizontal and vertical boxes ready to use. We have to import both of those. You can see all of the imports we have here. You can minimize that if you would like, and then it will just tell you how many you have. The next thing we are going to do is let's start top to bottom. Let's start top to bottom. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get the Squidward and the title, as we saw over here, in both on top. So let's do that by first adding the title aspect. We could do that wherever we want, but let's do it right here. So let's say that will be a text object for the title. And we could say text title equals new text. I believe that said something along the lines of Spongebob buttons. Import the text object. And then if we want to add some font style to it, we could. So let's use a set font, and let's give it some values of Comic Sans, everybody's favorite, right? Comic Sans, comma, we will make it bold, so the font weight will be bold, and we'll give it a nice size of 40. It's probably telling us that we missed something in the constructor here. I think I'm missing a parenthesis. Here we go. It should be... Okay, So parenthesis here, font dot font, and then we have to import the JavaFX font. Okay, so we set the title font to be this font. And that should work, but obviously it will not be in yet because we haven't added it to our pane. So what we need to do is we actually need to remove Squidward from the top of our pane by doing the following. Let's see where we add Squidward. That would be right here. So instead of, so we're going to override this, but actually a way that might make more sense for us is to do the following. Add the VBox to the pane, and this will override what we already did, but keep our image intact with the following. So we can do something as easy as saying vb dot set alignment, and we'll set the alignment to be centered because we want it centered on top. Then we can take VB and we can use the get children. So what do we want to be inside of the vertical box? We can use the add all method instead of adding one at a time. And the elements we want to be in there are title alongside of button 4. Right, so I set the vertical box to be aligned centered. I then got the children of the vertical box and added title and button 4, meaning button 4 is this, which will contain Squidward, and the title is this we just made. So we have right now done this top part right here, and then the only thing we would have to do is take our pane and take our pane and set the top of it to contain our vertical box. Let's see if that's all we had to do, and it was. So it looks like there's two things here now, but these are both inside of a vertical box, right? So we set the alignment to be center, then we added the title and button 4, which is the Squidward button, and then we put that vertical box on the top of our pane, achieving this look. So this now is the top, which contains a vertical box of two objects. Moving on to the horizontal box, how are we going to get these three images down here? Well, in a very similar fashion, we can do just... So in all of the images, we have Mr. Krabs, so that is actually going to be nice and easy copying and pasting for us. We could simply make a couple more buttons, like so. So here's our buttons, and then all we have to do is create a couple more. So we could say button b5_1 equals new button, and button b5_2 equals new button, because these are going to be on the button 5 row. We know that they are going to be Mr. Krabs, so we could just take these and do this. b5_1, b5_1, this would actually be 2, and I think that would do it. So we created a button called button 5_1, and we put button 5's one graphic as Mr. Krabs. We did the same thing for number 2. We shouldn't have to add it to anything just yet, because what we're going to do now is we're going to come down here to where we made our vertical box, and now we're going to make our H box, which we already made in the very start of this video, our HB right here. So all we would have to do here is take our HB object, get the children of it, and add all of the elements we would like to add, which should be button 5, button 5_1, button 5_2. So to my horizontal box, I would like to add button 5, which is the Mr. Krabs button, button 5_1, which is the other Mr. Krabs button, and button 5_2, which is the other Mr. Krabs button. Then I think we just have to take our pane and set the bottom to be B5, set our bottom to be HB. And that should just about do it, right? We get the children, add all of the buttons, and then this should be set bottom HB. HB contains all of the buttons, and if we did that right, yes, it worked, because the horizontal box now has all of these images inside of it. Therefore, you can have 3 images on the bottom because they are inside of yet another node. So perhaps a little trickier than when we set out, but it's not too much, right? The basics of this is that if you want to add more than one thing to a border pane, you can put them inside of different nodes. So we can put 3 images inside of a horizontal box, or 2 images inside of a vertical box. You can go above, below, and beyond those numbers if you would like, but that should be useful information. This code, as always, will be posted to Blackboard.